Hello, and welcome to Health Fitness Redefined. I'm your host, Anthony Amen. Join me today as we take a dive into the world of health and fitness, where we learn how to overcome adversity, to pick the fact versus fiction, and see health and fitness in a whole new light. Before we hop into today's episode, guys, don't forget, hop on over to that Patreon account. If you are a gym owner, a personal trainer, a health coach, somebody looking to take it to the next level, this is for you. You'll get personal access to me and a lovely group of support people where we can help bring you up, help give you advice, mentor you. It's definitely something worth checking out. For today's show, we're going back into the mental health field. Anthony, why do you keep bringing it up? Because mental health is the most important thing we can have in our society. I'm going to repeat that. Mental health is the most important thing in our society. If we don't have our own mental health, then we can't have physical health because it just drags us down and we don't feel accomplished in doing things. So I'm excited to have this guest on, intrigued to learn a little bit more about what him and his company are doing. It's definitely something worth bringing up into the atmosphere and you guys learning about. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome to the show, Alan Cox. Alan, welcome. It's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to be here today.
Yeah, I'm especially somebody coming all the way from New Zealand coming on today. This is why I love this virtual. I get to meet some people like you. And you were telling me a little pre-show, you're going right into your winter months. That's fun.
That's one way of describing it.
We're over here going into our summer, and here like we're going the opposite direction already.
I know.
Let's talk about you, right? So you mentioned a little pre-show, and I didn't ask questions because I didn't want to know. I like being genuinely surprised about it. Something with an earthquake is what I gathered out. So take us from there.
Okay, yeah. So I'll go kind of just quickly a little bit before that and say that most of my life I've had struggles with my mental health, largely coming from a bit of a traumatic childhood, and there's been some pretty rough times in there. But I think the thing to say is, like, I never really understood what mental health was. I never looked after myself in that regard. And when kind of those tough things in life, we all get them when they hit you. I guess it always used to hit me a bit harder than many people. And then, in February, like 10, 11 years ago, Canterbury had a major earthquake here where many people were killed. I was in a situation which was very close to that, unfortunately. And when I got back to my building, just opposite the building was what was called the Canterbury, the CTV building, Canterbury Television building. It was like a 10, 11 story building that had completely collapsed. Hundreds of people had died in there, and just seeing all of that carnage was pretty bad. And shortly after that, that took its toll mentally, and I had a major mental breakdown. And before it happened, my kind of mental model of what a mental breakdown is it just means that someone's depressed. But it's not. Your parts of your brain break, literally stop so that you can recover. Otherwise you'll die. And in my case, I was almost permanently tired. I couldn't walk very far. My legs were like jelly. My speech was slurred, and it felt almost like a stroke. But that really was the tipping point in my life, so to speak.
That has to be traumatic. And it just basically sums up what PTSD is, where, for those that don't know, post traumatic stress disorder, experiencing some kind of life event that's so traumatic it creates a flashbulb memory, which means something which we all have. Like if I said, where were you during, in America, for example, during 9/11? Most people that were alive there can tell you exactly what they're doing, what was going on in their life. That's called a flashbulb memory, and you can recall it like this. Whereas
Yeah.
everything else in your day-to-day life just really doesn't sit in your brain, goes in, goes out, and we retain
Mm.
certain things. So
Yeah.
if you're struggling on something that as traumatic as that, how did that make you feel? Did you, I know obviously it was like really hit you, but there's got to be better words than what I'm trying to say. Like,
Yeah.
walk us through that process of this just happened and move forward over the next couple of years of kind of how you felt after it. And did you constantly keep
Yeah.
going back to it? Is that what was happening?
Yeah, it kind of affected you in a number of ways. I think the general feeling, I guess, was the best word to describe it was surreal. You know, like you just had this sense of like, you know, for weeks afterwards, being in a situation that just doesn't seem right. You know, I mean, I'm not exaggerating, nearly I think it was over 85% of the buildings in the central city um, had to be demolished. You know, if you look at if you search on YouTube, sorry, not YouTube, on Google for, you know, Christchurch City post earthquake, it it looks a it looks it looks a little bit like the pictures you see of Mariupol, right? It was like that, and but there was also things like, you know, I remember a situation when I knew that there were people buried alive and they're trying to get them out, and a fire had broken out. So probably, you know, I don't need to go into the graphic details, um, but at the same time, you know, you drive a few hundred meters away and you look into a bar and there's all these people drinking, right? And it just doesn't compute, right? It's just really surreal. But there was other things as well, like if you're in your car and someone, you know, tooted their horn, it might, you know, not you, it could be anyone. I remember getting these feelings of like, um, the best way I've described it, if you could imagine thinking someone's just fired like a rocket at you, and you don't know where it's coming from, it's going to hit you at any second. I got those feelings all the time when and they've eased off now, but that they were the kinds of things that happened.
Yeah, it's tough. And you have any advice for people that have similar situations? You hear this a lot with vets. You hear this a lot with big natural disasters, like something that you went through, where it's just these big traumatic experiences. Any way you can
I think
help
that
people understand it better?
yeah, I think the biggest advice that I've got, like, because like I often go on to you know, forums and Reddit and things like that, and I try to help people that are, you know, suffering and stuff. And the first thing I say is, don't take any advice off of people on this channel because they don't know you. They're probably not qualified. You know, it's the worst place to get advice, right? um, but here are some things that might help, right? Because they helped in my situation. I think the biggest thing for me is I had no, you know, you're in this kind of dark space, right? And you just have no concept of what's going on. You basically have, I think really your mental model at that time is, I'm just a bit, I'm, my brain is just screwed up, right? And that's the way it is from here on, right? And that's not a nice thing to look forward to. So in a way, it either keeps you there or it makes you go into a downward spiral because there's no hope, right? But what happened in my case is there's a wonderful it's a little bit dated now, but there's a BBC documentary, and it's available for free on YouTube, and it's called the truth about depression. And in that program, it basically gave me hope, right? Because it made me realize two things. That one, that the way I'm feeling isn't just because I'm broken. There's a number of things going on in my brain which all contribute to the way I'm feeling. My hippocampus is probably 20% less size than what a healthy person would be. And that would be producing like a chemical imbalance, and that has this ripple effect, right? My amygdala wouldn't be functioning properly and all these different things, right? But what the program, so first of all, the program very graphically, because it's got all these really amazing, not CGI, what do you call it? Like graphic models of like what's going on in your brain, right? And so it shows very graphically what's going on. But the second thing is that it showed you that all of those things can recover, right? It's not, your hippocampus can go from 20% undersized back to, full size and full health within 3 months, right? And so yeah, I would highly recommend people at least to give that, it's 1 hour out of your life, just give it a go, right? And because of that program, it sparked my curiosity to learn more about the mind, right? I learned about everything from Buddhism to neuroscience to, I learned about this thing called neuroplasticity that shows, your brain can be wired the wrong way, and by doing things, creating new habits, you can literally rewire your brain a different way, right? It's just an amazing world. We get taught foreign languages at school and all those kinds of things. Like seriously, I believe that if you think of all of the content that is delivered in, say, your biology class or your mathematics class, there's way more material than that to teach people about mental health, mental fitness, soft skills, all of those things that would just be amazing for not only your academic outcomes, but your performance and your opportunities in life. So it's a real gap in our education system.
Yeah, and neuroplasticity, I love the effects that has on the brain and how it can create habits. And for those that just want an easier understanding of it, if I gave you a baseball and I said, hit that target, and you're never really threw a ball before, you're going to be bad at it. And it's going to take you, you're going to really think about how to hit the target with the ball. And then over time, the more you throw and the more you throw, it soon just becomes second nature. And now I can start having a conversation with Alan and go, all right, target hit, because your brain recreated that neural pathway to be able to comp something. This is what athletes do all the time. Get something so they don't have to think about dribbling the ball. If I'm basketball, I don't need to think about where my hand is. I know it's there, and I can pay attention to what's going on the field around me. And it's the same thing with rewiring your brain to start thinking and processing things differently, which is not easy to do. I want to mention something to you, Alan, and to those that do know me a little bit. It is something I personally have suffered with myself. So it's important to realize that there is hope. And I'm going to explain really briefly about how I overcame it. And then I want to hop into your system, which I know nothing about right now. We didn't talk about it pre-show or anything like that. I'm doing this because I want to see how closely related it is to what you're doing and how you're doing it. How does that sound?
Sounds perfect.
All right. So I was super depressed, obviously, really, really down, beat up. And I came to a point in my life that said, I have two options. I could A, end my life, B, do something about it. Obviously, I chose the latter, and I knew that I needed to be around. So what did I have to do in order to overcome these constant negative thoughts? I started with affirmations, and it was, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. And I just repeated that to myself about 10,000 times, not an exaggeration, in my head over and over and over and over and over again. And over time, I realized it became easier. I did the same thing. I was super shy, is be outgoing, be outgoing, be outgoing. And I would get to the point I would go talk to somebody and it would stop. And I try again. I keep repeating and keep repeating. And then eventually over time, I was able to be happy and be outgoing. And over the course of 3 years, I rewired my brain so well, I've never had another depressive episode in my entire life. And now I'm able to handle anything life gives me because I was able to really rewire how I process things. And I was able to turn every negative impact of my life into something positive. All right. That's my story. How does that fit?
Well, it's a great story. And you know, I kind of just kind of dropping back into like neuroplasticity and like what you are basically going through is that we have all these pathways in our brain, and if you think of like being in a field of grass, right, and you've got a well-trodden path, right? Let's just say this path here is the I am unhappy path in your case, right? That is the only path you see, right? And because you see that path, that's the only way you go. Similarly, that another pathway could be if I'm driving along and somebody cuts in front of me, that the pathway might be that person was trying to hurt me, so get angry, right? You have all these pathways that all do all these different things, right? Another pathway is I go into say an office meeting, and two of the people in there are looking at me in a strange way, so there's something wrong with me, right? So that's the path I follow, right? But what you can do, and which is what you did, is you basically said, look, I'm not going to walk that path anymore. Just because that's the path that's clear and well trodden, I'm going to go somewhere else. And as you can imagine, actually physically being in a field of long grass, it wouldn't be easy straight away, would it? Right?
No, it was very difficult.
You've got to push through. But over time, as you do it more and more, you know, it's. I love this analogy because it really crystallizes exactly what you do in your brain. You're like, and you're not only forging that new path, right? But what happens with that other path? It disappears, right? Because you're not traveling that path anymore. So that all the weeds and long grass grows again. So it's no longer a path, and it's amazing that is physically and actually what happens in our brain, right? You can go onto YouTube and you can Search for something like neuroplasticity video, like microscopic video or something, and there's actually videos on there of these new connections forming in real time, right? And it's just incredible. And like, who would have known that? You know, I would basically imagine that over 90% of the people listening right now will be going, oh my God, like I didn't even know that's even possible. I thought once your wiring in your brain is set, by the time I'm 16, that's it, game over. I am who I am. But no, it's not. You know, you can rewire your brain up until the day you die.
Yeah, and I want to hear about how you were able to do that with your own personal scenario, which I know is going to gear into how you're helping other people. But before we hop into that, guys, we're going to take a quick break and grab a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right. For us, we know what it's like to feel unhealthy, depressed, and downright defeated. We want to show others there is a right way, and through fitness, you can do anything you set your mind to. Fitness can give you that motivation, confidence, energy you need to bridge that mental gap and prevent you from missing important life events. We understand it's about feeling better, living longer, and being good examples for our kids. We understand this because we live it. And for us, that's the redefined difference. Hey everybody, and welcome back. We have Alan Cox here. He is talking all about his story, how he's going to explain how he came and overcame his troubles of what happened in his life. I think it's really important. And before we really find out why, that we all have different paths to success and being happy, but it's definitely something that if you know somebody who needs help, definitely pass on this information to them, because you never know how a little gesture can go a long way and really make somebody's day. But Alan, explain to us what you did, right? So you started learning about neuroplasticity. You started rewiring your brain. How did you do that? And how did that lead you to where you are today?
I was in this situation where, because I'd had this mental breakdown, I couldn't even, do you know, like when you read a paragraph in a book and you think, I've already forgotten the two sentences before. I couldn't read stuff, so I went to YouTube, and I was doing all of my learning on YouTube because it was just easy to consume. And there was these videos on there where something just resonated with what they were saying, right? It applied to me. It was meaningful. So I basically made my own playlists of all of these snippets of content, and you know, I probably had hours of the stuff, and I would just play this stuff whenever I could, right? You know, like when my wife went off to work in the mornings, and I literally spent nearly all day in bed. I would put on my, you know, Bose wireless headphones. Yeah, plug for Bose there. But I'd put on my headphones, and I think most of the time that I was listening to this content, I was probably asleep. I was, you know, and I just noticed it's really hard to talk about it. But you know, when we get to the product I'm working on, what everyone talks about is noticing a shift, right? They don't necessarily, you know, so I noticed a shift. I didn't necessarily feel better, but I noticed something had changed. But what happened is I just carried on listening to this material, and over time, my energy increased, my outlook on life increased, the way I, you know, just everything got better. And you know, the people that were caring for me at the time, like they had previously told me that because of the magnitude of my breakdown, it would be at least a year before I could even like think about reintegrating into work, like even part-time. But within 3 months, I felt like I could just go back to work, and I did. And it was quite funny because my care workers, they, to put it into context, some people that have mental health conditions, they can put stuff on and pretend, right? And they thought I was pretending. They was worried about me, right? They thought, is he just trying to, but no, I felt great. But that was really the catalyst that made me think, oh my God, what happened there, And that really led to what we're doing today with EverYellow.
So, what's an example of one of these snippets, just to get a little more understanding about what you were listening to?
It could have been like a bit of Wayne Dyer, Anthony, Tony Robbins. They were just all random things. And if I didn't like somebody's accent, I would go into the audio app and cut them out. And if I thought that what someone was saying just didn't resonate with me, I would cut that out as well. But it was, I would just say that it was not really motivational, but I would say educational stuff that really made you kind of, rethink like the reality of the situation that we're living in. I'm not really, I don't want to appear that I'm critical of it at all, but I'm not really one of these kind of what you call like woo people, hippie or I'm pretty grounded, down to earth. I'm somebody that likes to look at the evidence behind things, and but yeah, well, I think a lot of these things did just, they use analogies and what have you, just to help you just rethink like your situation, how to deal with things, what's going on in your brain. I mean, like just to give, I'll give you one example, right? If you have anxiety, right? Many people don't know what's actually going on there. And when I used to have like an anxiety or panic attack, I would kind of spiral very quickly, right? I didn't know what was going on, and like it felt awful. But then I learned that there's all these memories in your brain, and there's this reptilian part of your brain that's trying to keep you safe, right? And in the most part, it does a good job, but it also does a bad job as well. And one of the things it does is you can subconsciously pick up on something that your safety system says, this is like that time that you was, I'm going to make things up now. This is like the time you was beaten up in the playground. This is the time, this person over here looks very much like the person that abused you all those years ago, right? And you don't even think that stuff, right? But your reptilian brain says, whoa, you're in danger, man, right? And it actually releases chemicals to say you're in danger, get out, right? Just learning that one thing meant that if I was in a situation like, say, I remember the last time it happened, I was in like an office, like where you all come together to share lunch kind of thing. It's like a bit of a special occasion. I was talking to somebody and something triggered this anxiety, right? Just knowing that, you're able to say to yourself, like, and I literally said this to myself in my brain while I'm having a conversation with somebody. I said to myself, don't worry, Alan, that's just your silly reptilian brain that's told you that you're in danger, but you're not in danger. You're completely safe. Don't worry about it. And it just went away, right? That is just one of the hundreds of skills or tools you can learn to get a much a much fitter mind and a much and get much more out of life.
I mean, I feel like the just summary of that is education is power, where you're able
Yeah,
to, if you're able to understand why we do something or why that you do something in particular, you can address the situation more from an outside in approach. So I can take a step out of my body and be like, oh, this is just because of this. I'm actually okay. And that's
yeah,
able to help you process it instead of an inside out approach, which is like panic, endorphins everywhere. So I like that a lot. It's more of an educational sound point to it, which is helping somebody understand their own mental health. So, how does
yeah,
that tie into what you're working on now?
yeah. We we've got a company called EverYellow, and we've created it is a very unique type of app. As we've done a lot of research, and we don't believe there's anything like it out there. What it basically does is, it's a little bit, in a way, it's a little bit like listening to a podcast that's been personalized to you, right? So it's a pure audio experience. It's very enjoyable because um, we combine music and personalized coaching for you. So what essentially happens when you use the app is that we first get to learn a bit about you through just answering some basic questions, and then from that point on, you just open the app and press play. We have this thing called a daily workout. We encourage you to listen for at least 10 minutes a day. But a lot of people listen to it for a lot longer than that. They'll listen while they're driving to work or driving home from work. And the great thing about what people really like about it is they can really easily fit it into their life. It's based on it's based on some solid science. We've brought a number of things together that make it kind of so effective. But what we really hear from so many people, I'll be honest, that when I set out to create this app, I had it in my head that you would need to use it for a good month before you really noticed any difference, right? But that can't be further from the truth. We've got people that we've got many people that say two things. One is, in as little as one session, right, within one day, they're feeling that shift happen. They're not suddenly going from, like, in terms of their well-being, they're not, like, say 1 to 10, where 10 is the best you can be. If they're a 3, they don't suddenly go to a 5 or 6. That still takes time, but it's almost like they feel that spark suddenly come on. And then, people just enjoy using it, and they carry on using it. And what's been a real kind of delight to hear is just the various stories of how it's helping people. And it's not, yes, it can be used if you're not if you're, say, depressed or whatever, but it's not really for that. It's the vast majority of all human beings, again, getting back to that analogy of, or that spectrum of well-being from 1 to 10, the average is about 5.5 according to our data, right? Like, people have got a long way to go. The vast majority of the human race is sitting somewhere between 3 and 6, right? And especially if they're adults, they're pretty much stuck there, right? And it won't be until they get to their 70s or 80s that they start getting happier again, right? We want to change that around now, right? So we actually see that by working on your mental fitness, by learning all these skills, it's going to increase your performance at school and at work. It's going to improve your relationships. I'll be open that for many years I didn't have the best relationship with my wife. There was all kinds of challenges, but when you are educated and you have a fitter mind, you can start contextualizing things and think, hold on, this isn't her. This actually probably is me, right? And so it's hard to go into it, but there's just so many benefits that come out from improving your mental fitness.
And just to give a little bit of solidity into kind of what you're talking about, I never bring up shared screens of web pages and showing what it's about. And I just did that if you're watching the video version of this, guys. I think it's something important that we can all learn from, because I practice this. Maybe I've never heard of what you do, but this is something I do all the time anyway. Education of learning how to cope with certain situations, education of, I read a whole book about neuroplasticity because I was so curious about what it was. And it intrigued me to be like, okay. And I dropped that mindset that Major League Baseball player is all things he was born with, and I'll never be like that. And you kind of develop the mindset of, wait, anyone could do that. They just didn't put the work in that person did. It didn't have the neuroplasticity connections and the amount of repetitions that they put into it. So realistically, you're not born like that. You're more nurtured to be like that, if that makes sense. So definitely something worth checking out. And this is app that's totally free, it said on it.
Yeah, so we're actually what's called an impact enterprise, right? So we're more focused on a social mission rather than making heaps of money, and that's baked into our constitution. One of our core principles is that money should never be a barrier to well-being. So we have a free version of the app that is comprehensive and people can use. We have a premium version that has extra content and extra features, and all I would say is that, one, it's not expensive, and two, if you are able to pay for it, you're basically enabling us to provide the free version to those that can't afford it. There's many people that their financial situation is pretty dire, and we want these people to have access to good tools. So yeah, it would be highly appreciated if you can download the app and pay for it, because that's you'll be helping a social mission.
Yeah, which is so true. A lot of people that suffer from mental health usually suffer financially too, because it's a struggle on every aspect of your life. It's
Yeah,
your physical health, it's your financial health, it's your spiritual health. Everything kind of plays a role, which is why I keep harping on this mental health issue and why I think it's so important that people find avenues to help make themselves feel better. And I maybe that's the wrong words, but having the resources available that can help these people and reaching out and being like, hey, I have a friend that maybe that not this is for me, but maybe I have someone that would benefit from this, kind of passing the word on that way. And
yeah,
it's definitely something I recommend. I love the analogy, how you're very like follow this the science, doing studies on it, not just going nitty gritty and saying, all right, just think a certain way and you're cured. It's more of this is the trial that we push through over and over and over and over again. These are the results I gathered from it. And a lot of
yeah.
people can appreciate somebody coming from that standpoint and will be able to at least take it and hopefully it helps them.
Yeah, and I can't address. I really need to emphasize, if I may, that the vast majority of human beings, they're kind of on this treadmill of life, right? And and it might seem like a little bit of a kind of digression here, but just over 2 years ago, I spent 3 months in a hospice while my mother was passing away from cancer, and I got to meet a whole bunch of people that basically were at the end of their life, and many of them died while I was there. And the common factor with all of these people was regret over not doing more with their life. They basically, they didn't give a damn. The people that say had you know risen to a good station in life, in terms of, like, they might have a big car, big house, and tons of money in the bank. They didn't even offer that information, right? That meant nothing, right? We go through life chasing all these things that are meaningless, and then most of us don't realize that that was all BS until it's too late, right? And what I'm really trying to do with EverYellow is for everyone, right? For everyone, don't think to yourself, well, I don't need this app because I'm okay. No, you're not okay, right? You're probably mediocre, right? You have what's called suboptimal human functioning, right? And if you can optimize your human functioning, you'll have many more moments of joy through your life. You'll have more relationships, new opportunities will open up to you. You might even find the strength finally. Like, this is one of the other things that happens. We have people say, look, I finally had the strength to chuck in my job and go and do a university degree because I really wanted to do this thing, right? This mental fitness is it's kind of like a superpower that, like, it's really hard to explain it until you've got it, right?
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Mental health is definitely a superpower you never knew you had until you find it. I love that, Alan. We're gonna actually wrap this up and ask the final two questions I ask everybody. Is first one, if you were to summarize this episode in one or two sentences, what would it be?
Sorry, that's to me.
Yeah, that's to you. Summarize what happened in
Oh,
this episode in one or two sentences.
yeah. Well, if I could summarize it, it would just be to say that you know most of us just don't realize what we're missing, and stop missing out on it before it's too late.
Stop missing out on life before it's too late. I love it. And then second, Last question. How can people find you, get a hold of you, all the good stuff? Give it to us.
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. Search for Alan Cox on LinkedIn. Go to our website. We also have versions of our product for like businesses and schools as well, because we're really trying to improve workforces and give children better outcomes at school as well. So just go to our website and get in touch. EverYellow.com.
EverYellow.com, guys. And thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of Health and Fitness Redefined. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button and join us next week as we dive deeper into this ever-changing field. And remember, fitness is a journey, not a destination. Until next time.